thank you, Sopheap, for inviting me to your atelier. And that's my second visit with you. The first time I remember was in your old atelier where you helped me acquire bamboo for my own project. What I really always was interested in and now want to ask you is, how was this moment for you when you as a Cambodian refugee came to America? You know, how do you experience this Trader Joe markets, bombastic reality over there, and how you found your way in there and how you found your position in that society?
I think that's an interesting question because, you know, I got there when I was a child, right? I was 13 years old, but I was pretty much uneducated.
But you sure had consciousness already with 13.
Well, I mean, I was at that stage, you know, when you grow up half of your life during the Khmer Rouge and then half your life as a refugee in the camps, it's very hard to kind of know who you are and what the world is about. Yeah, you understand? Because it's like they're two different bubbles. But the same, you know, like you graduate from this bubble, which was horrible, and then you go to another bubble, which not as horrible, but equally surreal and strange, because, you know, refugee camps isn't a walk in the park, you know? So in that sense, I don't have an identity issue, because I don't have any issue to have. You know what I mean? It's just like, how do you live?
So you understand yourself like a blank piece of paper.
Exactly. I thought I was the same as everybody else. I went to the US thinking I'm just like one of them, you know. But they remind me that I'm not, because you know, I don't dress right, I don't wear my hair right, I don't know much of the language. All right, I couldn't understand what the teacher is saying, you know, 80% of the time. Even though I know how to read a little bit and I know how to write, I know how to do the homework, because you have all that time to think and to figure it out. But when you're in class, you're not understanding everything because you're always catching up, you know.
This is actually the moment that interests me, because I think this is where I understand your personality developed in this, you know, being this or coming from here and adapting to the other side, to the West. Yeah, and I think that must have been a defining moment or defining years for you. And if you can say a little bit about how you looked at America and the American peoples, did you immediately really identified with that and said, okay, I'm now American, and just looked how things run and moved with it? Or do you had problems in adapting or questions you had towards this society? Was there anything that was formative in that relation?
Yeah, so the thing is, I never feel like an American. I never really feel like I'm a Cambodian, because I never really had an opportunity to feel what is a Cambodian. You understand?
At that point,
yeah,
sure.
You know, like if young people grow up here today in Cambodia, I think for the most part they can feel something about being Cambodian, because, okay, your parents are saying go to the temple, you have these ceremonies that you do, you participate in the culture, but I didn't grow up with culture, you see? I grew up with no culture. So then when I was transplanted to the US, you brought up like sort of the mall or the supermarkets and things like that. You can only participate in those things if you have money. So if you don't have money, then it's kind of, you're just looking at it, right? So what I did was, when I was young, when I was first arrived in the US, I started delivering newspaper just to get extra money, because, you know, I don't feel comfortable asking my parents for money, plus they wouldn't give it to me anyway, because they really don't have much money, because they were working, you know, minimum wage jobs. So, but that money was able to, like, I had to be resourceful and you know, getting like a used bicycles and, you know, shoes and things like that. But you know, it wasn't anything luxurious. So I kind of missed out on that as well. My younger brother, they were in the Michael Jordan and the basketball and the football and the baseball. You know, I didn't have any of that.
So to understand that you were actually still on this very basic grounded level of existence, like really existential being, and so there was not much distraction in your mind from all this pop cultural impulses, although.
No,
what was
exactly. But that time there weren't much in terms of, I mean, if you don't have a TV, you're not participating in any culture, really. You know what I mean? If you're not watching TV, there's nothing there.
Sure. Yeah.
So there's no phone, there's no computers. So you're kind of exempt from that whole culture thing. You know, I didn't have that culture. So, but I'll say this. You know, when I did leave the U.S. to come to Cambodia, I experienced the whole thing all over again. Because in Cambodia, once again, you don't have anything again. You see. I had nothing again. I had no computer, I had no phone, I had nothing, no car, no nothing, right? So it was interesting.
That even leaves me a little bit envy in that moment that I see, you know, you don't have much baggage on you when you were moving, you know.
It was psychological.
And it is also that makes me understand you know, also in your assurance about things, yeah, because it sounds very made up by yourself. Is that so? Because for me, for example, I have a huge cultural baggage, you know, it's from background, education and everything. And I always found myself, you know, how do I position myself as they have done this, they have done this, they have done this, right. You know.
The history of art for you
really
is very,
left
very long.
me very little space to move. Yeah. And this is what makes it attractive for me to see you, you know, not having that monkey on that back. Yeah. So knowing that now, I would like to know from you is what hooked you on art then? Could you pick out maybe one or two inspirations or moments where you came to clarity about what the thing is about and what you want to do with it?
When I was in a refugee camp in Thailand, one of my neighbors' kids, you know, like a kid of my age, he came back home and he had a little watercolor, like the size of less than a postcard.
With different colors in it.
Yeah, different colors. Blue, yellow, you know. It was a Cambodian landscape, you know. And I said, where do you get this from? He said, oh, I painted it. I said, you painted it? I couldn't believe it. It was the first painting I've ever seen. And I could not believe that this little kid can do such a thing. I said, I want to do that too. Of course, I tried to go and follow him to the school, but, you know, school in a refugee camp, a little difficult, because this is an extra curriculum school. It's like a NGO school. So when I went there, the first day I went there, I couldn't fight to get the pencil. I couldn't fight to get the paper, because it's like the teacher drop it on the table, and it's like dogs coming to grab them, you know, everything. So of course I'm being a very nice kid and didn't know the culture of that, how that works. So I said, forget it, I'm not going back there. I'm never going to get a piece of paper. I'm never going to know how to do anything anyway. So I didn't go back. But that was the first time I ever seen a painting, and it makes me want to be an artist since that time.
Since that time,
yeah. And I was about 10 years old. You know, when I was in Amherst, I was able to go to New York, right? New York City, go to the MoMA, go to the Met. So that's kind of like how I learn. I just pick things up here and there as whatever comes to me, you know? Like your eyes attract to certain things. And in France it's the same. It's like a group of friends that I have in school, we never stay home. We always go to all the openings, we go to all the exhibitions. You're in Paris, you know? So you go to all these exhibitions, you draw, you sketch from them, you take notes. And I think that's how I learned. So it wasn't like I was aware of the timeline of what happened before and after. It was more like, oh, this is really, like, I like this. This is really attractive to me. And then I find out about it. So that's kind of like how I learned. It's like a bric-a-brac kind of learning, you know. And then when I was in grad school, I worked in a library. I was pretty smart. I worked in a library. I stacked books, you know.
So there you learned a little bit about art history.
I learned a little bit about history then, yeah.
As I tell you, in that we were completely equal. I only looked at the pictures. I started reading these things only when people expected me to talk about art. Yeah, because this is what informs, same here. But what informs us, of course, are the visuals, right? And this is, you know, I can see walking around here, of course, it's distinctively your own, and I see strong Asian references, but I see also, I see you in this continuum of Western art history, even more than we might come to this later than in the Cambodian cultural life embedded. Yes, as I read you through European concepts of art, and especially some moments in sculpture like the concrete sculptures of Eva Hesse or this kind of people.
Yes,
and so I see you actually like a diplomat of Western arts tragedies in Cambodia. Would that be fair to say? Or?
Well, it's difficult for me to look at it in a clear way because I'm not always conscious of what I'm doing.
From my experience that I have now being an art educator too, right, is that there's a fundamental change in the way how young people understand art. You know, this sensual connection that we have so strongly is not relevant for these people because they approach art through digital media and only that. There's especially here in this country, there's very little connection with original artwork, not to think about contemporary artwork. You're a very rare example here.
For me, it's always like, it goes back to kind of like my childhood where I spent a lot of time playing with other kids, you know, because I wasn't in school, I wasn't working, and so I'm just kind of left out to be with nature and with other young kids. So it's like, I experienced hunting, I experienced, you know, making marbles and, you know, playing, you know, tops and making, you know, toy boats out of the kapok tree, you know, with rubber bands and bamboo. So it was more of a bit of a playfulness to entertainment, where, you know, now it's like everything is made for you, and you design it, you design your life around it. In a sense, it's the same, but it's on a whole different level. When I was young, I didn't have a computer, I didn't have a phone with pictures in it, right? If you just remember the flip phone when it came out, and it was so exciting, you can text. Remember you text your friends? Remember it's like a walkie-talkie, right? It was so exciting. But now it's like everything is there for them, so, you know, there's just like, everything is there all the time, and, but I think if you don't have good parenting, like, you know, or good teachers, you know, that says, hey kid, you know, you can't just use this, like to communicate. You have to go back to, you have to ask, like, how do people make this happen? Instead of just like, how can I get more of this? You gotta ask, like, how did they do it? How do you think they did that? So in a way, like, when
that's what we do actually.
Remember, I don't know if you took this in high school, but they trying to teach me computer programming, and I was horrible at it, because it's like very robotic, right? Like, they tell you
we have
to
teachers for that, and they're good actually.
And
they're popular
like, that's
too.
really good. You know, like you need to teach people how these things work. Like so if look, the smart kids are always going to be the smart kids. The one who are taking it easy and like trying to play hooky, you know, like trying to get away from doing much work, they're never going to get very far, or at least it's going to take them a lot longer. You know, and I'm not saying I'm immune to that. You know. It took me a long time to come back to drawing. It took me a long time to come back to face myself in the mirror and say,
"Isn't it?
God damn, I can't draw. I can't draw. What am I going to do?" You know.
You lose it when you don't practice.
Yeah. But once you get back into it, then you feel a little bit of a confidence, and you're like, "Oh yeah, okay. This is always what I know. I'm not losing it. So whatever I do, I just branching off of it. You know, I just keep on going. So, but without the basis." If you want to do animation, right, computer animation, you should learn how to do manual animation, just to see how much labor and how much work there is involved in terms of making. And plus, if you learn it from manual animation, you're actually creating something original.
That's the point.
It's come from you.
That's a big difference. You don't work with these bricks, you know, and just recombine them. You know, exactly. This is exactly how they understand the creative process. And that's so different from that, you know, also working with your inabilities, you know, and getting you know,
just knowing that, knowing what your weakness is, knowing what your strength
and
is.
what you can do with the limited abilities you have and get something out of that. There's a big freedom in it, and that's where great art ideas came from in modern times, right?
Here's a question I like to ask. Yes. If you have students who just refuse to do the homework, right? Here's a question that I also ask young artists. How do you know when your work is any good? How? Where do you go to find this? That you can just decide that I'm just going to hang this on a wall and wait for the world to see. How do you know that? How do you know? Where do you go to find that confidence? You understand? How do you tell when your work is good? How do you tell? How? What knowledge? From what basis do you have? For me, it's through, I said again, for me it's through drawing. It's how I get to any art, how I get to any other people's art. I can talk about Rembrandt, I can talk about Van Gogh, I can talk about, Rauschenberg, I can talk about the minimalists. I mean, it's all through drawing. It's all through my knowledge of drawing. And having gone through it, having dedicated myself for several years to it, having faced myself naked in front of a mirror on a big piece of paper every night for months, and then destroying all of it, I cannot draw like a Albrecht Dürer or anything like that, but I was equipped enough to know that I have something. Like I have some skill, you know. It is through that. Honestly, when I'm looking at everything, is through just not my knowledge of drawing. And drawing, because I draw from nature, I'm not familiar, but I can adapt to nature. I can look at nature, and I can look at the right places.
And this is where most of your forms come from.
This is where the form come from. This is where all form come from, actually. Our identification with it. And this is where, like I said again, the people who design the popular songs, the people who make the amazing films and movies and the stage designers and the opera, directors, they gone through this. They gone through this. In some way or another, they gone through it. But if you are grown up in a digital age and you just bypass that whole thing and you become a kind of pastiche artist, I put it together, what they call it. Hey, you take that and you put this and you take that, you put it together.
The remix.
You don't have, the samplers, And yes, sure, there's another argument whereby, hey, come on, let's not say that this is better than that or whatever, but I'm talking from an artist's perspective. I'm talking from an artist's perspective. Now, there are some great artists who are great at sampling, but they are far and rare, right, in between, because they're just, some people are
I know great sample artists, and I see that as a skill set in itself. So and this is what we are revolving around here the whole time. This shift in in the way how to create.
But for me, when I go to see a live concert, I like it when a guitar have an echo. I like it when a guitarist make a mistake and there's a feedback sound. There's a certain energy about that whole live experience.
I'm just giving devil's advocate here, I'm so much on your side. Of course, I also am addicted to the primal experience.
And because that's where the heart and soul come from now. Well, someone can say, I'll take that and I'll take this and I'll just remix it together. Okay, great. But, I'll go to a guitarist performance.
It's another way, right? It's another way.
But it's important to point it out, I think. Whether you choose this or that. Like some people just listen to digital music all the time. That's what they do. They like to dance or something. I don't know. That's what they do.
I like to dance too. But
I don't really, for me, no, not really. But I get it. I get that people do that. You know what I mean? But remember, things start from somewhere, and to be able to do something, you kind of have to acknowledge that it does. Because if you start off like denying it, then it's just like saying, well, I don't need anything to happen because I can just make it happen. Well, you're not a magician, you're not God.
Thank you, dear, for that great conversation. And I think we laid out here a plan about where we are coming from, what we are facing. And I'm personally very happy to see something I would call an ancient mind or a timeless mind, as striving and doing your work.
Well, that's a timeless mind. I like that. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting again.
It's a really good conversation. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.